My granddaughter Emma leaned close to me, her little hands still clutching the crayons she'd been using. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the words hit me like a thunderclap. Grandma, children is invaluable. Emma's thriving because of you. Translation. Keep working for free while we enjoy our nights out. They even began isolating me from my support system, telling the church ladies I wasn't feeling up to visits. Convincing me I was too busy to attend book club. Slowly, deliberately, they cut me off. And then came Emma's whisper. That innocent child had no idea she had just saved me from being robbed blind. I slipped into my bedroom, pulled my purse from the closet, the one I'd kept stocked with every important document since Frank died. Widow's intuition, I guess. Something in me had known this day might come. At exactly 1:30, I told Emma we were going for a walk. She skipped happily beside me, humming a tune, while I carried the weight of betrayal and fury in my chest. At the corner coffee shop, David Morrison was waiting. We'd gone to high school together, and he'd handled Frank's will years ago. His brow furrowed when he saw my face. Margaret? What's going on? They think I'm some helpless old woman they can dispose of. I told him flatly. But today, David, I'm taking everything back. He didn't even blink. What do you want me to do? Everything. Revoke their power of attorney. Transfer every account. Draft a new will. And David, get it all done before they come home. Within minutes, we were at his office. Emma colored quietly in the waiting room while David slid paperwork across his desk. My hand didn't tremble as I signed. Each stroke of the pen was like reclaiming a piece of my soul. David explained that once a power of attorney is revoked, it must be notarized and notice delivered to every institution. We called my bank, First National, where I'd been a customer for 40 years. Yes, I told the manager. Transfer everything. Checking, savings, CDs, all of it. Over $600,000 moved silently across town into an peeled the potatoes. I imagined their smug little conversation that morning. The appointment at Shady Oaks is at 5. Brian probably said, we'll tell her after dinner. By tomorrow, she'll be settled in her new home. They thought they had it all figured out, the fees, the paperwork, even how to spend my money. Jessica had been eyeing a new SUV. Brian wanted a kitchen renovation. A European vacation was already on their lips. The clock ticked toward 4. Outside, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in amber hues. Then I heard the car pulling into the driveway. My hands smoothed my apron. My reflection in the window calm, grandmotherly, harmless, perfect camouflage. The front door opened. Mom, we're home, Brian called, cheerful, overcompensating. Something smells amazing, Jessica added. Just making your favorite, I replied sweetly. Emma's in her room. How were your errands? Silence. Then Jessica's too bright laugh. Fine, just running around town. They had no idea. In less than an hour. While they thought they'd been voice calm as steel. Just like you taught me. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. David Morrison stepped into my living room with his leather briefcase in hand. His expression serious. He greeted me warmly, then turned to Brian and Jessica with the measured calm of a man used to hostile rooms. Good evening, he said. Shall we get started? Brian looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Jessica's face went pale. Started? Started with what? She stammered. I folded my hands in my lap. The picture of composure. David is here to explain some changes I made today. Sit down. Children, this won't take long. Emma was upstairs, lost in the world of her dolls, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing below. I was grateful for that. This wasn't a lesson for an 8-year-old. This was a reckoning for 2 adults who thought they could strip me of my dignity and my savings without consequence. David opened his briefcase and slid out a folder. First, the power of attorney. As of this afternoon, any authority Brian and Jessica once had over Margaret's affairs has been revoked. It is null and void. Brian lurched forward. That's ridiculous. We never abused. Sit down. I cut in, my voice low but firm. He froze, then slowly lowered himself back onto the couch. David continued. Second, all of Margaret's accounts, checking, savings, CDs, have been transferred to a new institution. The balances are secure and inaccessible to anyone but her. Jessica's hand flew to her mouth. You can't do that. That money is mine, I said sharply. Every cent. Frank and I built that nest egg over decades of sacrifice. You don't get to touch it. David's eyes flicked over to them. His tone matter of fact. And third, Margaret has executed a new will. Under the revised terms, all assets pass into a trust for her granddaughter, Emma Sullivan, until she reaches the age of 20. Brian clenched his fists. Mom, this is insane. We were just trying to protect you. You're 70. 67, I corrected smoothly, and sharper than either of you. He swallowed hard, but I wasn't finished. Let's be honest about what this is. I said, you didn't want to protect me. You wanted to exploit me. To isolate me. To count my social security check as part of your mortgage budget. To treat me like unpaid childcare. Do you think I didn't notice? Jessica's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal. That's not true. We love you. Emma loves you. Emma saved me. I snapped. She heard your little plan and told me the truth. That child has more integrity than both of you put together. David cleared his throat, pulling out another set of papers. There's also the matter of the $600 from the sale of Margaret's home. That money was transferred directly into your accounts, ostensibly to pay debts and secure her living arrangement. Since you are now attempting to terminate that arrangement, repayment will be sought. Every penny, plus interest. Brian shot to his feet again. I wasn't their victim anymore. I was their reckoning. Brian finally whispered, Mom, what do you want from us? I straightened, smoothing the front of my blouse. Respect, accountability, and distance. You will have 30 days to resolve the financial matter of my home proceeds. In the meantime, I'll be arranging a new place to live. My life is mine again, and you're no longer part of it. David gathered his papers, snapping his briefcase shut. I'll see myself out, Mrs. Sullivan. I'll follow up tomorrow to finalize the filings. As he stepped out into the night, I caught my reflection in the window. A grandmother in her apron. The smell of pot roast still hanging in the air. But behind the soft edges was steel, sharpened by betrayal. I turned back to Brian and Jessica, their faces pale and defeated. Dinner's getting cold, I said softly. Eat it while you can. Tomorrow will taste different. Upstairs, Emma's laughter floated down the hall. Sweet and pure. She had no idea what had just unfolded beneath her feet. Someday, she would. And she would know that her grandmother refused to be broken. 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived at my new apartment overlooking Riverside Park. The move had happened faster than even I expected. David insisted it was safer for me to be out of Brian and Jessica's house immediately. And he wasn't wrong. The air in that place had grown toxic. Whispers, slammed doors, muffled arguments. Emma's sweet face had been the only light in a darkening home. The envelope bore David's law office seal. Inside were the official filings, revocation of power of attorney, transfer confirmations from the bank, and my updated will. I sat at the kitchen table, fingers trembling slightly as I flipped through page after page. Each document was a weapon, forged in ink and legal precedent, to protect me from the two people who thought I was powerless. But as I read the cover letter, Dave handled the paperwork while I was drowning in grief. And I'd never questioned him. At David's office, the truth came out in clinical, devastating detail. Frank had a $2 million policy. David explained. Half went to you. The other half went to a woman named Linda Morrison. I blinked. Linda Morrison? Does the name mean anything to you? Oh, it did. Frank's secretary at the engineering firm. Blonde. Too friendly at company picnics. I'd brushed off the suspicion for years, convincing myself she was harmless. My hands clenched in my lap. So he really? David nodded grimly. She received $1 million. But here's the problem. You only got $500,000. Which means your son intercepted the other half. The room swam. Brian stole $500,000 from me? David slid papers across the desk. Copies of checks. Forged documents. Signatures I didn't recognize. It looks that way. He told the insurance company there had been an error. He pocketed the difference. I sat frozen, hearing the echoes of his voice at the funeral. Don't worry about Dad, and Linda would have destroyed you. You were broken, Mom. I couldn't let you suffer more. So you decided to pocket the money instead. His voice dropped to a whisper. I used it to pay off our house. To secure Emma's future. To keep us afloat. I let out a laugh so bitter the people at the next table glanced over. You stole from me and called it charity. The check came, but neither of us touched it. Brian's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it and went pale. It's Jessica. She says David's at the house, with police officers. I smiled. Slow and deliberate. That'll be the criminal fraud charges. Insurance fraud. Elder abuse. Theft by deception. David was thorough. He stared at me like a drowning man watching the shore slip away. Mom, please. Think about Emma. If I go to jail. You should have thought about Emma before you chose crime over honesty. I stood, laying a 20 on the table for my iced tea. Don't worry about her. She'll be well provided for. In fact, she's inheriting everything. His lips trembled. You can't do this to me. I'm your son. I leaned close. Close enough that only he could hear. You're right. And that makes it so much worse. I walked out of the restaurant into the bright afternoon. My spine straight. My hands steady. For the first time in years. I felt completely in control. The next morning, I sipped coffee in my apartment as the news anchor's voice floated from the television. Local insurance agent Brian Sullivan has been arrested on charges of elder abuse and fraud. Accused of stealing more than $500,000 from his own mother. My phone buzzed. Emma's voice, small and scared, came through the line. Grandma? Mommy's crying. Daddy's not home. Are you in trouble too? My chest ached. No, baby, I'm not in trouble. Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices. And they have to face consequences. But I'm okay. And I love wood and old paper. A mixture that always made me feel both small and strangely powerful. It was 3 months after Brian's arrest. And the legal battle had taken on a rhythm of its own. Hearings, filings, affidavits. Each one another nail in the coffin of my son's carefully constructed lies. I sat beside David Morrison at the long oak table. His briefcase filled with evidence, bank transfers, forged documents, even the emails where Brian and Jessica had written promises that I'd always have a home with them. Across the aisle sat Brian in a cheap gray suit, looking 10 years older than his 39. Jessica perched stiffly beside him. Her eyes rimmed red. They looked like a couple who had bet everything on a rigged game and lost. When the judge entered, the courtroom rose, the gavel cracked, and just like that, the next chapter began. Brian's attorney, Martin Burke, argued that the $600 had been a gift. There was no formal loan agreement. Your Honor, families help each other. That money was given freely. David rose smoothly. Your Honor, this was not a gift. It was contingent upon Margaret Sullivan residing with her son permanently. We have documentation showing intent. And beyond that, we have 18 months of evidence that Brian and Jessica treated her as a tenant, financial isolation, coerced childcare, and attempts to seize control of her accounts. This is elder financial abuse. Plain and simple. The word hung in the air. Abuse. It wasn't a word families wanted attached to their names. But it was the truth. The judge's gaze shifted to me. Mrs. Sullivan, do you believe your son acted with malicious intent? I stood, my hands steady on the railing. I believe my son saw me as a wallet with a pulse. I believe he forged documents and lied to me while I was grieving. I believe he was willing to have me declared incompetent to finish the job. If that isn't malicious, I don't know what is. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Brian. Watching the world move with a peace I hadn't known in decades. Frank's betrayal still stung. Late at night, I sometimes lay awake remembering Linda's voice on the phone. The way she'd admitted she'd been pregnant with his child. That wound would take longer to heal. But I reminded myself, being hurt doesn't make you weak. Being kind doesn't make you stupid. The day Brian was released from prison, the phone rang. His voice was smaller than I remembered. Mom, it's me. I know I don't deserve it. But, could we try to start over? I looked out my window at the park. At children chasing dogs and couples walking hand in hand. At the life I had almost let slip away. Yes, I said finally. But this time, we do it on my terms. The words tasted like steel and honey all at once. The first time I saw Brian after his release, It was at a diner on the edge of town. I chose the place deliberately, neutral ground. Public. No shadows to hide in. He walked in wearing a wrinkled button-down. Thinner than I remembered. His shoulders stooped with the weight of 18 months behind bars. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize him. "Mom," he said softly, sliding into the booth. His eyes darted around nervously. Like he expected everyone in the diner to know what he'd done. Maybe they did. Small towns have long memories. I stirred my coffee, letting the silence stretch before answering. "You asked for a fresh start." I agreed. "But if we're going to do this, Brian, there are conditions." He nodded quickly. "Desperate. Anything. Just tell me what to do." I laid out my terms like laying cards on a table. Therapy, financial counseling, full transparency with your money for at least a year. You and Jessica will share custody of Emma responsibly, without dragging her into your battles. And most importantly, no more lies. Not to me, not to her, not to yourselves. His jaw tightened, but he knows my eyes in my Riverside Park apartment, with the sound of children playing outside and Emma's laughter still echoing in my ears. My life is my own again. Some stories end with reconciliation. Some end with justice. Mine ended with both. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you've been through something similar, share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.